Thank you everyone for joining today. We are super excited to talk about the YCharts and Black Diamond integration today. My name is Rushi Shah. I'm VP of Product Management here at YCharts, and I've been focused on building out a lot of these integrations with great partners like Black Diamond. And wanted to pass it off to JD here, who's joining us for this webinar as well. So JD, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Rishi. JD Gorel. I am a solutions management here at Black Diamond and SS&C Advent. In my current role, I manage our partnerships and integrations for all of our advisory and wealth management business here across the Advent ecosystem, primarily focusing on Black Diamond. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we are excited to have you here today, JD. And just a few housekeeping items before we get into it. You should see a Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to throw in questions in there. We'll try and cover them throughout the webinar, or we'll also do a Q&A section at the end if we don't get to it during the presentation. If you're on the call or if anyone registered, you will get a recording of this webinar sent to your inbox, so be on the lookout for that. Also, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a lot of great content there, just like this webinar. And lastly, please keep in mind that the content of this webinar is meant for educational purposes only and is not intended to be used as investment advice, nor is YCharts acting as an advising party regarding client funds in any way. And with that, let's kick things off. So we'll talk a little bit today about Black Diamond and a little bit about YCharts, but we really wanted to spend some time on how to use the integration, what the great functionality is there, and a few use cases of how advisors have been leveraging this integration with their workflows. So JD, I'll pass it back to you to give a little bit of an overview on Black Diamond.
Yeah, so really just wanted to kick this off with just a background on who Black Diamond is, where we serve in the market, and the customers and clients we serve here. So Black Diamond is what's considered a portfolio accounting system. So we do all of the performance reporting and provide a platform for financial advisors and their clients to get a holistic view on their assets. We provide a dedicated service contact to all of our clients, whether that be local sole proprietors here running in excess of $50 to $100 million in assets through the platform, all the way up to independent broker dealers running a few billion through Black Diamond as well. So we really can cater and tailor our solutions to fit the needs of all size of advisors and clients alike. So we service trust companies, family offices, endowments, foundations, RIAs, broker dealers, and enterprise type aggregators as well. So Black Diamond really is a robust service that focuses on providing the solutions and services needed to make advisors' lives easier and ultimately help them grow their practice. That is our model and philosophy here around how we structure the program, how we view partnerships, and the solutions that we build and bring to market. A part of that is a very robust data network. Advent being a very tenured company in our industry, we have connections with over 900 different institutions, and those are direct and dedicated with each institution individually versus, if anyone's familiar with a service like a Mint or Personal Capital, where we put in your username and credentials and rely on screen scraping to get the data into the platform. We have relationships with each of these 900 individual companies and work to establish direct data connections with each of them. So the data is very reliable, comes timely, and is highly accurate. So some of the unique things that we do there around alternative investments and the core custodial data as well. And Rishi, if you want to skip to the next slide here, to give you a little perspective on the scale and breadth of our service here. We run north of 2 trillion in assets through the platform on a daily basis. We service over 2,000 RIAs and clients on Black Diamond alone. If you include the other offerings within Advent's ecosystem, some of our legacy platforms, that number jumps to north of 3,500. We have 400,000 active firm users and client users that log into the platform on a regular basis to see their portfolio numbers. And the rest of these stats just really give you a very good perspective on the scope of Black Diamond and how we can serve not only the day-to-day advisor working with individual investors, but also some of the enterprise offerings and scale there on the institutional level as well. You go ahead and skip to the next slide. Perfect. And lastly here, we wouldn't be able to do, half of what we do without a great group of partners to make this all possible. We launched this partnership with YCharts a couple of years ago, and it has quickly become one of the best integrations that we have and most widely requested. So this has been an absolute fantastic, couple of years working with Rushi and his team to build this integration and bring this to market. And we know that there's not one size that fits all solutions, and one solution that fits all advisors. So it's partnerships and integrations like this one with YCharts that really makes Black Diamond, I think, stand out in our industry. That we take an agnostic approach to technology, and we have great solutions, in our CRM capabilities and financial planning that we just released, and asset management and model portfolios that we have native and within our four walls within Advent. But we know we're not the right fit for everyone, and we want to be able to meet advisors where they're at, and be able to have the data and the technology available within Black Diamond that best suits their needs, and be a good partner first and foremost, rather than just another vendor. So that's Black Diamond, a little background in a nutshell. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. There'll be some contact information here at the end of the webinar, how you can learn more. But at the end of that, feel free to jump some in the chat. Happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Awesome. Thank you, JD. So just a quick overview on YCharts before we go into the demo portion. So if you're not familiar with YCharts, we're an investment research platform, and we help advisors with, three key benefits, which I have listed here on the right. One is AUM growth and retention. Another one is significant time savings. And the last one is better outcomes and client satisfaction. We really do this in this circular approach, which is the best way. We like kind of explaining how YCharts can provide value to you. And really where this Black Diamond integration is providing a ton of value for advisors is that portfolio construction process. So really being able to build your portfolios out, analyze them, and do things like proposals and client communication, and really that advisor-client alignment, really helping you connect the dots with your clients to be able to have that conversation more effectively. In addition to that whole portfolio side of things on YCharts, we do have great market and portfolio monitoring tools like our dashboard and alerts. And then we also have a great research and analysis portion of our software, which helps you with things like idea generation, just typical security analysis, and just there's just a lot there in terms of your research practice. So there's a ton that YCharts has to offer, and this integration is providing a lot of value within all of this. So I want to go into YCharts and give you a little bit of a demonstration, and I wanted to set the floor a bit and just kind of talk about the process of prepping for a client meeting. So let's say you're an advisor, it's end of quarter here last week, and you want to meet with your client and talk through where their portfolio is, talk about the markets, update them on what's been going on, and maybe make some changes to the portfolio. Maybe you want to realign with their goals long term. You want to do some research on their underlying holdings. And lastly, you want to communicate all of that to your client. So you want to talk about where they were and where you want to take them and what that means for that client. So I want to go through this workflow using YCharts and using this integration. So I'm in YCharts now. This is our YCharts dashboard. If you're not familiar with this tool, it's kind of the home page when you log into YCharts. You can fully customize this with all the great data that you want to keep an eye on. I have this default one that's typically just some general market related information and individual stock information, but I have a couple others like, a Fed policy tracker where I'm able to track what's going on with inflation, the Fed funds rate, other market or economic data. I have a fixed income dashboard, et cetera. So these are all great because you can toggle through them and keep an eye on the market. Maybe as you're preparing for that meeting with your client, you want to keep an eye on your dashboard and say, all right, here's a couple things that went on and here's what I want to talk about. And all of these turn into charts as well that you can build into a presentation or build into a report that you'd like to share with your client. So now you have an understanding of the market. Now let's really dig into the client aspect of this. You want to pull in your client's data from Black Diamond into YCharts, which is really where this integration is going to provide a ton of value. So I'll talk a little bit about how to get set up with this integration if you haven't done so far. If you hover over support, you can click on integrations, and that's going to take you to our integrations homepage where you'll see all of our partners that we're integrated with, and you're able to pull in that portfolio holdings data. If you're already signed into Black Diamond, it's super easy to get this activated. You just go ahead and hit manage and activate, and it'll know that you're signed in, and it'll log you into that integration automatically. So reach out to us if you have any other questions, but it's a pretty seamless setup process. Once you see that active status, you're good to go. So once you've activated it, the next step is actually going into our model portfolios tool. And this is where you'll actually be able to import that client data. So I'll go into model portfolios and I'll click on import holdings. Zoom in a bit here. So once I click on import holdings, and if you've activated that integration, you'll see that partner listed here. So I'll go ahead and click on Black Diamond. And let's say today we're talking to the Smith family. I'm going to go ahead and search for the Smith family, and let's go to that correct portfolio. You can also search directly for the account if you're familiar with the account rather than the portfolio. We have both functionalities. So I can go ahead and click on Smith family billing and then go ahead and pick the account that I want to cover today or analyze. So you could multi-select if you wanted to household the accounts. You could pick one at a time. For today's demonstration, let's go with Nick Rogers & Co. because that's the one we're covering with the client. You'll notice how quick that was. That took about a few seconds, and we were able to pull in that whole portfolio into YCharts with those values. So that'll help on the YChart side to provide weights to these underlying holdings. You'll see those values in here. We also, for security purposes, will mask that account number. So you'll only see the last 4 digits of that. So we won't display that information anywhere within the tool. And then you'll also be able to add a couple other things if you'd like. If you have an advisory fee you wanted to portray onto the portfolio, you could do that. You could also have it auto calculate the portfolio value based on the dollar allocation, which is nice, so that everything kind of aligns with what you see within Black Diamond. Lastly, you can also change the rebalance frequency of the portfolio. If you wanted to change the benchmark as well, you could change it from the S&P to whatever. If you had a blended benchmark within YCharts, you could really pick whichever benchmark you'd like to use against your portfolio. So for the sake of time, I already actually created this portfolio in my account. So let's go ahead and take a look. And this is what we call our portfolio quote page. So it's really where you get all that great data on where your portfolio is currently at. This is an awesome page for advisors to be able to see things like allocation data, performance data, sector breakdown, fixed income breakdown. All that stuff is right here within these tabs. So as I scroll through, you'll notice those holdings here. You'll notice some risk statistics, performance. Up here, I can start toggling through these tabs. So if I want to look at the holdings and take a look at a categorized holding analysis where I can see, what international equity holdings I have or what US equity holdings, and really just get a lot of information on your portfolio to be able to really be prepared for your client conversation. Let's say today you're talking with Nick and they're reaching that point in their life where they want to change their allocation. Maybe, right now this is at 70%, around 70% in stocks, but maybe you want to bring that down a little bit since they're closer to retirement and you want to change that to 60-40. So you could see how easy it is to get that asset allocation breakdown here and really make those actionable changes right here and notice what the portfolio looks like under the hood. So I'm able to say, okay, you know what, right here, this is a little high for me. Let's change that allocation and keep that in mind as I'm talking to Nick. Let's also take a look at the holdings. So we have quite a bit of holdings, and maybe I want to look at sector breakdown, because right now everything going on in the markets with just different sectors having different themes. I want to know how this portfolio looks from a sector standpoint. I opened this tab here on the right, which is pretty awesome. It's called Quick Flows, and what that's going to let you do is I have my portfolio in here, and with one click of a button, I can go into a ton of different workflows. I mentioned sector breakdown, so I'm going to click on this holdings sector exposure. And that's going to take me to what we call our comp tables tool. And I'm going to look at the overall exposure to each one of these sectors for my portfolio and for the underlying holdings. So right here, I'm just kind of surveying the holdings and the portfolio overall. I noticed my financial services exposure is pretty high with all the stuff going on with the banks and all that. Maybe, Nick brought that up throughout the quarter. So that's something I want to really hit on during my meeting with Nick. And I also noticed that the exposure to some of these holdings is pretty high. So looks like this GCIAX is an international equity fund, and it has 22% in financial services. So maybe I want to research that a bit and dig a little deeper and find something else that might fit a little better in Nick's portfolio to bring that overall financial services exposure down. So again, I'm going to go into that quick flows menu, and instead of looking at the portfolio, I'm actually going to dig into that fund here, and I'm just going to type that in. And we have a couple options for funds. Let's find a similar fund to this GCIAX. So I'm going to click on that. And again, it's going to take you to another workflow with one click. This is our screening tool. So based on that fund that we were looking at, you can see similar funds that kind of match the same criteria or fit the same bill as that fund we were looking at. So I'll give this a second to crunch the numbers, and let's see what we come up with here.
Rushi, while this is loading, it looks like we have our first couple of questions here in the chat. One particularly related to the current topic we're going through. They asked, what about holdings that are individual CUSIPs? I'm going to assume that relates to individuals trading securities here.
Yeah, so for individual CUSIPs, since we don't have those on YCharts, what we end up doing is we allow you to put in a proxy holding in there. So instead of that maybe it's like a bond holding or something like that, you could put in like a fixed income fund. Or if it doesn't have a ticker, we'll just display the name of the security that you have within Black Diamond, and you'll be able to identify, maybe there's a proxy you can use instead of that holding. So that's how we deal with if it doesn't map correctly. All right, so the screen ended up loading, and it looks like we have about 65 results. And the way the screener works is I have all these different screening criteria, and we were talking about financial services exposure. So let me add one more filter here, and I want financial services exposure to be less than 10%, because I'm really looking for the funds that are similar to GCIAX, but they don't have as much financial services exposure. So I'm going to go ahead and submit, and that's going to reload that screen, but it's going to filter out all of those funds that have a ton of financial exposure that we don't quite want within that portfolio. This screen also allows you to add in different data points within the menu. So I'll be able to add in different metrics like category ranks. If you wanted to look at performance statistics within the screening tool, there's a lot of functionality here to be able to look at that data from a table standpoint to really understand what these funds look like. All right, so it looks like with this screen, there's only 3 funds that have less than 10% financial services exposure. So if we're really trying to stay away from there, let's maybe look at these 3 funds. And this top one here looks like they've been ranking pretty well as of late in their category rank. So I want to dig into this DEQIX and maybe switch out that other fund for this one. So this is where I'm going to click into the fund, and just same thing as the portfolio page, we have fund quote pages where you can get all of that same great information and even more for funds specifically. So things like fund flow data, you can look at manager tenure, expense ratio, all that stuff within that particular fund to really do your research and understand if this is going to be a good investment for your client or not. So at this point, let's do a check-in on what we've done so far. We've changed our allocation from 70-30 to 60-40. We've also swapped out that GCIAX fund for DEQIX. So it's really easy once you have that portfolio from Black Diamond and YCharts to duplicate it and make those changes. And I did that already, and I can show you where we're at here in this proposed portfolio. So now within the allocations page, you'll notice we're closer to that 60% in stocks instead of 70%. And when I go to that holdings tab, you'll notice that Delaware fund is in there instead. So we've made those correct changes. We're at a point now where we're in a good spot, and we feel good about communicating this to Nick. So a couple more things that might come up, and I wanted to highlight one more tool here called the scenarios tool. This is great for comparing and contrasting where that portfolio was versus where you want it to go, and really paint a nice picture for your client to say, you know, if you contributed or withdrew this amount of money, this is how your portfolio would come out over in history. So I'm going to open up a scenario I have on my account here for Nick. Let's just say, and here are the inputs I put in. Let's say we want to look at a 10-year historical look back and say, you know, you started with 2 million, or that's where you were in 2012. And then you did monthly contributions for 5 years. So you put in about, you know, $1,000 a month, and you did that for 5 years. And then after that, you reached retirement, or you're going to reach retirement, and you have 5 years of just taking out 2%. You can kind of paint the picture however you want. So you can edit these timeframes, you can edit the values in here. I have that current portfolio. I'm just going to throw in that proposed portfolio as well. And let's see what we come up with here. Now this scenario is going to tell me, you know, those end values are pretty close. Even though we lowered that stock allocation, overall, it's pretty much the same. And maybe that's a conversation you want to have with your client. Maybe you want to paint a picture of what this looks like for contributions over time and say, you know, with this type of scenario, you're going to be able to withdraw a good amount of money during retirement. And also you can look at a table and say annually, this is what this is going to look like for you. And here's what your returns look like. So it's a great holistic way to connect a real life scenario of your clients. And the awesome thing about this is these numbers and everything can be changed, and it loads very quickly. So if I wanted to edit this to say, you know, let's say you had 3 million instead of 2 million, what would that look like? You just hit calculate and it reruns that scenario right away and gives you that data. So it's a great sandbox type of place to do your research and really understand what type of picture you want to paint for your client. All right, so you've done your research, you're ready to go, you're ready for that client meeting. This is one of the coolest parts about YCharts, and that's our reporting functionality. So you have this client communication piece where you've integrated, you've imported your portfolio, you've done your research. Now we help you do that client communication piece with our reports. We have this report builder tool that we just released that really helps you customize that report to tell that exact story to Nick. So I have this comprehensive report. It has pretty much all the sections that you're able to pull for your client. So I'm going to just edit this to show you how this looks like within YCharts. This report builder functionality is really cool because I can go to any page and say, you know what, I actually want the stock style exposure to be above market cap, or I want it to show up on page 2 rather than page 3. And you're really able to piecemeal what sections you want to cover and build that report out to be custom just for Nick. Once you've done that and you run that report, it's pretty clean. And let me see if I think I downloaded it already here. Yep. So this report here is the output of what you'll see. And it's really great because it's firm branded. It allows you to put in different sections, change the colors, add your logos, add custom disclosures. It's a lot of great functionality for you to be able to communicate. And also it's a great side-by-side view. So right next to each other, you can say, here's a change we made. You could see we have 10% less in stocks. You can see when I scroll down all the way to the holding section that we took out that one fund and swapped it out for the other fund. So here's the Delaware one, here's the Goldman one that we swapped out, and you can tell that story right on in a one-page view. So it's a great report to basically explain the changes you'd like to make and communicate that with your client. So that's pretty much all in the demo. Let's see if we have any other questions to cover here.
Yeah, it looks like there's a handful of questions here related around historical performance and calculating performance there, specifically with allocations. So let's say as an advisor, I made an allocation towards Apple 6 months ago. Does that 1 year historical performance number reflect that I purchased it 6 months ago, or does it look at the current holdings and project back 1 year, assuming I held it the entire time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way the integration works is it'll import your current allocation and it'll be that snapshot view. However, we do have something called dynamic models where you would be able to say this was the date that I had this allocation change, and you'd be able to put those into your portfolio as well.
Perfect. So assuming that the performance is point in time based on current holdings, does that mean that you can track performance within YChart prior to the inception of a client's portfolio in Black Diamond?
Yeah, I mean, you'd be able, if you import that portfolio, and since it is that snapshot view, it will go back as far as any of your holdings go back. So if you had a holding in there that went back to like 1980, you'd be able to set that portfolio to go back that far, and it'll assume you hold that holding and then slowly invest into the rest of the holdings. So it'll give you that full long-term view of what that portfolio looks like.
That's awesome. Lastly, any best practices around prospecting? Obviously, YCharts is a very robust proposal generation tool looking at modeling the current market and prospective portfolios. How have you seen this used for prospecting and adding new clients for advisors?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would start with a lot of what we showed you today. If you're able to leverage that integration and pull in your portfolios to give that snapshot view to your prospects and say, hey, this is where you are versus this is a model portfolio that my firm has, and here's how that looks. You could look at things like advisory fees and expenses on those portfolios, and there's just a ton of data within YCharts that will let you really break down what the difference is between where that client is and where you want to take them. Another thing I'll add is the market data portion, which a lot of advisors love the firm branding aspect within YCharts. So I'm sure you've seen YCharts charts on social media and on Twitter and things like that, and presentation decks. We let you really customize things like colors and logos and stuff like that within our charting tool. And we provide you a ton of market data too. So if you're really trying to build your brand as an advisor, you can use YCharts to do that, which really helps with prospecting.
That's fantastic. I see another question here from Francisco asking about Black Diamond services and fee schedules. Francisco, here you can see our link to get some more information on Black Diamond. We customize and kind of get to know each of our clients and come up with a pricing model that works for them. We have some flexible different types of fee structures and pricing models that can work for our clients depending on where you at in your stage of business. So would encourage you to reach out, talk to a representative within our company that can get to know you and provide a proposal for you.
Awesome. Well, JD, I think that's all the questions that came in, and if there's any that I'm not seeing here, we'll definitely answer them after the call. But with that, I think we can wrap up here. So JD, thank you so much for joining, and everyone on the call, thank you for listening. Please feel free to reach out to YCharts or Black Diamond if you wanted to check them out, or if you have any other questions, we're happy to answer them. And a recording will be sent to you. So if you want to rewatch any portions, feel free to do that as well. And with that, I think we can wrap up. So thank you, everyone.